I've built the context. You understand the lenses we're going to look through: science, spirituality, and story. Let's dive in. The first thing we're going to look at is the foundation of all existence in physical creation and the way we experience it. And that is energy. Everything that we experience, every expression that we understand is some form of energy. And we know this not just by ancient mysticism and esoteric wisdom, but from science. E equals mc squared describes this concept that both mass, matter, and ultimately light is a form of energy. That is the E. And so energy is not something that is ever created. It is always recreated. It is taking on a different form. It is never destroyed. It just shifts and changes into new formations. A great example of this is water. Water is liquid at a certain temperature, then at another temperature it's frozen and takes on one expression, and then when it gets hot it takes on a totally different expression, steam. And this is the understanding at a very elementary level how energy shifts and changes its formation. Now, what's important about energy is that it's not just something physical like electricity that we can name and understand. It's a concept. It's the ability to do work. And so when we look at energy, we can also see it as thought forms. And it's not as abstract as you think, because when we have a thought, it's because we are having firings of the electrical circuits within our brain. And then those electrical circuits producing electricity, which is a form of energy, fire and begin to respond in the biological context through molecules and chemicals. And we start to create on a denser form of memory of the energy that we're experiencing external to us that caused the stimulus in the first place. All of these things are just energy said another way. And so it's important that we really wrap our head around that concept, because now we can begin to explore, well, if everything's energy, how am I deciphering it? How am I understanding it? Because it seems like it's distinct separate things or distinct separate formations, when behind that, it's really just an expression of some sort of motion or movement, vibration, energy, work. And so that's what we'll do in this section, is we're going to unpack what is really collapsed in our experience of life. And that's the channels that we utilize to understand and receive information about this energy. Because remember, energy is everything, and it's in a formation that we can respond to. So it's energy, information, energy in formation. So one of the ways that we receive that is our mind. We know that we have a mind because we know that we can conceive, perceive, understand things that are not in this physical reality. They're not physically out here and I can touch them, but we can still see them to an extent. They're a little bit more fuzzy. They're not as physically tangible, obviously, but mentally we can explore them. And really, because things are so collapsed in our reality, they begin to strongly imprint on the physical reality. And so much so that we begin to believe that what we are thinking is what is actually happening or what is going on out here. So it's really important that we get distinct and clear on what our mind does and how it operates. We won't unpack it completely, but I will begin to help you understand a little bit. So our mind, you can imagine it as a medium between unknown unknowns and known unknowns that begin to live out here as known knowns. So this level of mind helps to bridge the gap between things that we haven't fully grasped and things that we have fully grasped and things that we have no idea exist at all. And so this mind helps us play in a way that isn't as fixed or as solid as the physical realm. We can begin to combine things in this mind that wouldn't necessarily be out there in the physical world yet. An example of this would be like a purple elephant is the thing that we talk about a lot. Imagine a purple elephant. If I say purple elephant, immediately you're going to be able to kind of comprehend and see that in your mind's eye, because your brain hears that sound and starts firing those networks that are associated with it, and that image kind of pops up in your purview. And there is no purple elephant out here, right? That purple elephant is in here, and it's really being distributed by language. But for you, you can see it, right? Not literally see it out here, but there is a level that you can perceive it, and it's in this other realm that's kind of housed somewhere around here maybe for you. Ultimately, that's what we'll call the mind, and it helps to begin to facilitate the combinations of things that bring about innovation and intelligence, insight. All of these things get facilitated through the mind so that they can start to manifest out in the physical reality. And we know this because that's how all of innovation in the physical reality happens, is we have a thought about it. Either we've deeply explored the knowledge because it's stored out here, or we have some epiphany, some aha, but it was facilitated by the mind and then worked with so that it was physically moved into the manifested reality of the next channel of our information, and that's the body. So the body is distinct from the mind. It has a physical representation to it. It's solid and dense, and it has chemicals that work within it in our genetic system, and it has electrical that fire, and does this. This memory activity, so that we can begin to take things that are just flashes of awareness and store them in deeper and deeper meaning. This is a very primitive way of operating that our genetics has explored for a very long time, because the more and more you can store memory and information of the energy that's coming in contact with you in whatever form it is, the more likelihood you're going to have of survival. And so memory serves a very high survival place. And we know we can get information from our body because we can hit it. We can, hear sounds that's being received through our hearing sense. We can see things through our eyes. It gets interpreted through our brain. We can feel things with our chemicals. So our body is a way to receive information of energy, and it becomes a channel that we can use to glean insights and understanding that this energy is attempting to provide. And most of us live our lives solely in those two realms. We live our lives in the mind and the body because we experience life from a subjective, identified identity that has a reality. And we don't really realize how much of a miracle that actually is. We're the only species on this planet that has that ability to the extent that we have. And also, we don't know that there's anything else in, space and in the universe. I would hope that there is, but ultimately, we could be the only species in creation that has the ability to hold this identity self, this lower self, because that's what the mind embodied does, is it creates a lower awareness. Our genetics have the ability to have an extension of its expression in the form of memory in different ways, both in our brain and in our body, our viscera. There's writings about this. The body holds score, and we're understanding with epigenetics how the environment impacts. But ultimately, our species is able to store deep memory, and inside of that memory produce the ability for an identified self-reality to take place. And from the minute we come out, we're born into it. I was given the name heart. I was born into a storage of a larger collective awareness that humanity has. That's called our family. That's called our society. That's called our culture. And we come into this physical reality to live a life, and we begin to be educated by that life through this larger system of stored information. And we store it through language, we store it through story, so on and so forth. And we live into that. It's very difficult to break free from that. That becomes very solid. It's a very sticky situation. What this work helps us understand is that's not all there is to the story. In fact, that is one of the reasons that we experience such deep challenge and suffering, is because those are blessings which can help us jar us out of that solid, illusory reality. We begin to think it is real, but it is just an illusion built by the larger awareness and the memory systems of our genetic expression, the species we call humans. This third channel of information is what helps us break free of that, and that is the spiritual channel of information. See, we have spent a very long time, the last 12,000 years roughly, in this last portion of the cycle, as we'll explore more, helping to bring out this physical evolution capabilities of our body to hold mind embodied. And we've told stories that have encouraged that to develop the hero. And ultimately what that does is help build an identifiable self. But the reason that that is there is so that it can begin to participate in something much deeper than just the physical lived experience. It can begin to participate in the spiritual evolution of the species, because it's the spiritual evolution of the species that expands it beyond those known realities of the larger value systems of group and individual expressions of experience that are stored within, to realms unknown. And that is what expands the genetics to begin to unlock and achieve higher and higher forms of expression that are stored within them. And experiences are what bring that out. And there's an established process that this takes, what it takes to unlock this spiritual channel. And it's called involution and evolution. Now, the stages of involution are differentiation, identification, domestication, and individualization. Why that's important is because those are the stages that help energy become involved, conscious awareness become involved within the genetic species. And then that produces the identity lower self, the mind embodied. That creates a very strong system, a kingdom that this lower awareness begins to live into and build. And the purpose of that is to help create this external reality so that an internal reality can become more and more distinct. And when that becomes distinct and there is enough catalyst to cause it to move forward on the journey, what will end up happening is it will move to become evolved. It will move to engage with the internal realms, which involved internalization, which lead to realization, actualization, integration, and ultimately unification. This is the spiritual evolution of the species. This is defined not only by our ancient mysticism and higher wisdom, but it is defined by our value system models that have been established within sociology, psychology, human development, things that we've explored very deeply in the last 50 to 30 years. Why this is important is because these line up very deeply with the stories that we have been telling called the hero's journey. And this is our mythology. So what it does is show that there is a scaffolding throughout time of the human awareness so that it will continue to progress towards higher and higher understandings of itself so that it can begin to unlock deeper and deeper reality, which leads to higher and higher spiritual evolution. Now, how do we accomplish this on a personal level? That's what we're going to talk about in the next video. In the next video, we're going to explore a very old mysticism tool. It's a meditation practice that I have explored, and it has revealed that our ancient symbols, which ultimately built our alphabet, our language that we use in the West to write and ultimately convey our ideas, the symbols that helped build those, their meanings directly connect to what we've discovered in the last 30 years our emergent brain functions of different areas are. And this has really profound implications on how you can consciously begin to understand and work with the already always happening of the spiritual evolution that is taking place every moment of your life. By working with this, you begin to unlock this portion of your journey and participate with it in very, very deep ways. Ultimately, unlocking the ideas of joy, love, peace, and bliss that are promised through all of these understandings. Can't wait to show it to you. Check it out in the next video.